Good afternoon. Welcome back to the channel. This video is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Do your own research, make your own decisions. All right, guys, welcome back. So I got a lot to cover in this video. I'm going to start with the big picture conversation about ICP, and then I'm going to get into everything happening with the tech CEOs because I feel like that's relevant to the broader conversation. This is happening at the same time where we're seeing more and more about personhood credentials. The W3C makes DIDs a web standard 2 years ago. The DOJ is suing Google and has deemed them an illegal monopoly. The FTC is suing Amazon, right? And so there's a lot of things happening with these big tech companies and these platforms. And I would argue any and all instability with them is very bullish and optimistic for the future of all the new technology. If I have time, I'll get into how the leverage trading market affects the spot price and how generally artificial selling pressure and or buying pressure can be generated through the leverage trading market, just so you understand that mechanism. All right. So times like this really expose people's true conviction in what they're invested in. And so for my bet was not on any given market cycle or time period. My bet was on a big picture transition to new technology. All right. Now, on that front, I couldn't be more optimistic. All right, put the market to the side for a second. Okay. The market that has a 100-to-1 leverage trading market tied into it that affects the spot price. Put that to the side for a second. Everything happening everywhere is bullish. Everywhere. I can't. Every time I open my phone, I see something else that's extremely bullish and optimistic for the future of all this technology. And if you just look at what's been happening with the tech CEOs and with the tech companies here recently, and if you just open your phone and use any social media platform today, everything that I'm seeing is extremely bullish and optimistic for the future of this tech. And so my bet was on that, a big picture transition to new technology. I think a lot of other people, their bet was that at some point in time, numbers going to go up because this is the general time period where number is supposed to go up, right? And you know, this is the general vibe I get when I look out in the rest of the space, is that they do think that the broader tech, blockchain distributed ledger systems, is going to survive and move forward. But their confidence and conviction on any one network or asset is not really there from what I've seen, right? And guys, there's not a lot of optimism out there in this space about the technology itself and where everything stands. And that's why you don't see a lot of conversations about technology and use cases, right? And how to actually apply this technology to create better solutions. There's not a lot of conversations about that. And a lot of that comes down to the fact that everybody's ignored ICP, right? And the limited functionality with so many of these other, like, that's why there's not a lot of those conversations, is because the things that they're looking into have extremely limited functionality, right? And it is difficult to make sense of how all this comes together and how we get from where we are right now to 10 years from now, we're on a new web. It's hard to make sense of that if you don't thoroughly understand everything that ICP can do. Because let's go back to 2021. I had serious doubts about like how we were going to get there, and did a lot of research on Chainlink, did a lot of research on ICP, and then it started to come together. But there's not a lot of optimism in this space about the state of the technology, where it is right now, and how we get from where we are to where we're going, right? So, but I would argue that there is, in the ICP space, a lot of optimism. And guys, if we were to just assess these as standalone networks, ICP is one of the only things that has immense value as a standalone network. And so the others have value once they're incorporated into the broader ecosystem. ICP by itself, in all reality, over a long enough time frame, with enough development, with enough resources, could replace the web as we know it. And so we're in different universes when we're talking about ICP and most everything else in this space. And so my confidence in ICP moving forward as a technology is 1,000x higher than my confidence that the market's going to move up or down or sideways at any given point in time. So that's my big picture bet. Okay. All these posts I see about XYZ fixes this, XYZ fixes that, are mostly only true about ICP. Yeah. And guys, think about the recent posts that you've seen. All right. So let's get into the product market fit conversation, right? I would argue we're in the demand creation stage. And what's happening right now is demand is being created for new systems. for new processes, right? For just new ways of doing things, because the way that we're currently doing everything does not work. And I'm seeing these posts come out about, who's building a decentralized, messaging application for Telegram, like who's doing this, right? And it's like the same answers come back almost every single time. It's happening on ICP. And the guy from the other day, when he posted about who's building an end-to-end system for to host decentralized applications, and it's only happening. All the other technologies in the space are complementary technologies. They're designed to complement other things, and ICP is the full package. And so, yeah, many people are just going to bet on, or just betting on number go up. And yeah, and guys, I feel like even if, and I mentioned this a while back in one of my AI videos, I feel like even if crypto were to not succeed or not survive, I feel like ICP would still have immense value as just as a platform and a technological framework for harnessing AI. And we were also talking about just how sitting here today, August 2024, with no bull market, I would suggest ICP is the best candidate for a global payment solution, identity solution, and Bitcoin scaling solution, right? Today, by many objective metrics. And I think even if crypto failed, there would be millions of reasons to use ICP for different AI-related use cases, taking into consideration, right, building out the infrastructure more, being able to support larger and larger models and more computation, right? That would just require more development and more resources. But if you look at the impact that it can have with artificial intelligence, and you look at the current problems with artificial intelligence, and we're going to talk about the drivers for change, because there's AI is just creating and is going to create tons of different problems in different areas. And if you look at how important it would be to have a solution that could mitigate a lot of those problems, you can start to see the big picture value in ICP just for that use case alone. Okay. And that's the great part about ICP having every single use case and not just targeting one market, one use case. It's literally expanding in every single direction. All right. And I don't think that we're that far off from OpenChat becoming the best technical solution for a messaging application. Maybe like a couple years, just more development, more growth, more features. But guys, the layers and layers of protection. I need to get somebody in the enterprise world that has a good understanding of the layers of protection needed for cybersecurity. It's insane, and it's growing year over year. But the layers and layers of protection needed for this is insane. And that's the cost that they're spending for protection and defense. There's also the additional cost on all the losses that come when they're not successful defending against cyber attacks. And so we're talking about the biggest problems on Earth. These are all trillion-dollar problems. But OpenChat's been running on-chain with no firewalls since inception. All right. And so if you can see the importance of, I'm not going to call it unhackable. I don't like using that word. Okay. Just because I don't have the credentials in the background to even be able to say that myself. But if people at Defending want to make that claim, that's perfectly fine. But I will just call it extremely secure software that, at least in OpenChat's example, has been running without firewalls since inception, that has a built-in payment system, identity solution, and a governance system. Can you think that there might be a need for something like that type of software in the future, given cybercrime is going to the moon? So there's so many different ways where ICP's value and its technology can be utilized, that there's, regardless of what happens with the market, I don't, as long as the world keeps spinning, I think ICP is moving forward, just because it's that complete of a product and a solution. Yeah. I'm glad in times like this that I did bet on ICP. I will say that too. I'm glad I didn't make the trendy bet or the safe bet. I'm glad I just looked at it and said I'm betting on tech. Yeah, a lot of these other networks, guys, just on its own have no value on its own. I mean, they do if you incorporate them into other types of systems, into a broader ecosystem, but outside of that, as a standalone network, they have no value. But ICP as a standalone network over a long enough time frame could replace the web. So drivers have changed. We've talked about this over and over and over and over again. But in times like this, where there's a lot of fear and people are talking about, well, the market cycle, we might go into an extended bear market. Okay. Does that mean that we're not moving over to new technology? No. That would just mean that we're going into an extended, further consolidation, whatever. But all I see this as is just continual shakeouts. I don't look at that. I don't look at the price action as a reflection on the big picture success of this technology. I don't look at what's happening with the market and say, okay, because price is going down today, then that means that this technology is not still going to keep moving forward and not be significantly further along 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, right? But that's most people's primary focus is the market. And that is their indicator to tell them whether or not things are going in the right direction or not. And it's unfortunate, but that's the environment that we're in. And I would just, make the case that try to avoid that type of a mindset. If you're here, because if you're here, you invested, in my opinion, in the big thing. Yeah, so if you're looking at the drivers for change here, guys, back to the whole conversation about cybercrime, it's not just the cost of prevention and all the layers and layers and layers and layers that it takes just to prevent attacks from happening. It's also all the losses that happen when you're not successful at preventing those attacks. And so we're talking about trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. Okay. And so I look at the cybercrime issue with the current technology stack and how we have everything set up today. I look at that as being just as unsustainable as the fiat system. All right. So I'm looking at both those things kind of being comparable with not being sustainable. All right. And so with AI, I think that even if crypto's big picture success was ever in jeopardy, there would just be endless reasons why ICP would still exist and move forward, because there's just so many different use cases where it can provide overwhelmingly more value than any other technology solution out there. What else out there today can offer the technological framework that ICP can for artificial intelligence? Yes, they still need to build out the rest of their infrastructure. They have to be able to do more and more computation and to support those larger models. But again, that's just about development and resources. That could happen. If that very well could happen. Nothing else, no other technology solution today could offer that smart contract AI model like ICP can. And the failing fiat system, but the AI opportunity, we're talking about trillions. We're talking about the biggest opportunities in the space and the biggest problems in the world. We're talking about the biggest opportunities in the world and the biggest markets in the world. And these are all the things that ICP is tackling. Failing fiat system. This is a $1 trillion market, $1 trillion problem. Everyone on a global system. That's obviously going to be a driver for change, right? As we move into the future. We're in siloed systems right now, country by country. It's 2024, right? We're already at the point where they can put computer chips in people's brains, right? But yet it's 2024 and we still don't have instant settlement with our payment systems. Sometimes settlement, even domestically, will take like 2 days. But if you want to send money internationally, it takes forever. So it's insane. It's outdated and it's going to be replaced, in my opinion. The lost intellectual property. This was from Forbes. This was from September 2023. And they say 600 billion annually just in the US on stolen intellectual property. And we don't talk about this a lot because the ICP as a solution for stolen intellectual property is like once we're on a end-to-end on-chain model. That's like towards the back half of this, right? But don't underestimate that as a huge value add here and a big, big driver for change. Because stolen IP is a huge deal. We just don't think about it very often because for the most part, the institutions own all the high-priced intellectual property. So the lost revenue from all of this, it will eliminate, guys, this being on a system like this will pretty much eliminate crime. I can do a video explaining how, and I have done a couple videos explaining how. I just put those on other channels, but I might do a video explaining how this will just completely eliminate, for the most part, 95 to 99% of crime. And so we're talking about the biggest problems on earth here. Multi-trillion, we're not talking about trading shit coins in the next dog coin that's going to go to the moon. We're talking about the biggest problems on earth. And ICP being a realistic, not a hopium moon boy shit conversation. We're talking about ICP being a realistic player for a lot of these issues, for tackling a lot of these markets. And so I would just look at ICP like the application layer, like the place that you're going to send whatever other assets to use them for any real use cases. And I think you'll have these different assets on your NNS app over a long enough time frame. And just the same way right now with Bitcoin, you'll have one for Ethereum, one for Solana, one for Avalanche, Polygon, Cardano, Tron, so on and so forth. And ICP will just become the application layer. And I do think it will follow this model right here. And will just continually trend more and more into this direction over time. And so that's kind of how I see this transition or moving forward. But I posted this yesterday that, like if I were to look at this like a movie or like a computer program, like a simulation, it seems like it's been programmed to create the most ideal conditions imaginable for a transition to new tech, because that's all I see. All I see are all the problems that there's already been solutions created for. And so I just see massive demand being created on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. So with these themes in mind, security, privacy, decentralization, free speech, governance, transparency, big picture, in my opinion, just put the market to the side for a second, okay? Everything happening everywhere is bullish that I see. Maybe I'm watching a different movie than you, but everything everywhere I see is bullish. And it's almost like, guys, we need a whole new framework, right? You get on your phone every day and you see all these problems, all these issues, just everything imploding, society collapsing, and IQ going through the floor. And it's almost like we need a whole new system, a whole new framework. And if you just look at the nature of the conversation, decentralization, centralization, it goes back to, the other thing where it's like people are like, who's building a decentralized network for decentralized applications, right? It's when people are asking these questions, like, why aren't you, the people that are asking those questions, you would think that that's where they would be. They would be at that place that they're asking about, right? But when you say ICP, it's like you never see any of them after that. Yeah, so free speech and censorship, compliance, regulation, that's another huge value add for ICP. It's flexibility, just with the governance system, and with how they have all their architecture set up, and allowing scams and fraud on the platform. That was a big thing that came up with the Telegram CEO. And so now it looks like they're kind of like rebranding the tech CEOs right now. They're all for free speech. And it was just like the government, the big bad government, that was getting them to censor people. Okay. But I think this does play into the CEO takeover that we used to talk about back in like 2021, 2022. I think that's what you're seeing right now. I think we're kind of transitioning into more of a technocracy. It's what it kind of looks like. And guys, we could see an avalanche of lawsuits against the US government and or against some of these tech companies. And I think that if some of the tech companies were to get sued, they might turn around and sue the US government if they were doing XYZ, censoring people, banning whatever it might be for on the government's behalf. Those companies might turn around and sue the government. But we might see an avalanche of lawsuits. And I saw some very interesting posts about this from Eric Weinstein, and also I think it was Melissa Chen, maybe. But and like, I just kind of look at these people as just, the mainstreamers. But there's just talking about how there might be tons and tons of lawsuits and damages coming from all the people that were wrongly censored and or defamed and claiming they were saying something about. But the thing is that all these issues are all a result of the old broken system. And it's going bye-bye from what I can see, okay? And it's just a matter of time. And there's nothing that they're going to do with this market And with this fraudulent price action through these derivative exchanges, there's nothing that they're going to do that's gonna move me off of this, right? And I don't think it's gonna happen with most anybody else in the ICP space either. But I do think that they'll go to most any lengths to try to shake people out of this, guys. It's the biggest opportunity ever, essentially. That's what we're looking at. So just think about the amount of shakeouts and stuff that would come along with the biggest opportunity ever, because that's probably what we're looking at. And institutional collapse, loss of trust. I'm just watching the decay, the collapse of all the old stuff. And yeah, so this was all at the same time, Google suing DOJ, right? New web standards, verifiable credentials, all those other things, right? Okay, so just briefly touch on this. I'm not going to like get into all the moving pieces here, but this was from November 2023, and this was Brian Armstrong from Coinbase, and he said that global derivatives market for crypto represents 75% of the trading volume, right? And so the majority of volume is coming from the derivatives market. And so that was from Brian Armstrong about 10 months ago or something like that. So this is the liquidations chart for ICP, and I also have Bitcoin down here too. And this is over the last 6 months, right? Now, when longs get liquidated, it causes selling pressure. When shorts get liquidated, it causes buying pressure, right? So you got to kind of think about it inversely a little bit. But what this shows is a 6-month period of overwhelmingly more longs being liquidated than shorts. So just on a very simple basis, we can conclude that the leverage trading market had a net negative impact on the spot price during this 6-month time period, because there's over probably 3 to 1. Yeah, it's probably 3 to 1, honestly. I mean, this is a pretty, I'm just looking at the more so like the ratio. I could count all these up. I do that at times just to get an idea of the total amount or the total net, but it looks like about a 3 to 1 ratio. So there's overwhelmingly more selling pressure coming from longs being liquidated, right? Now, this is the Bitcoin chart. You'll also see there's more longs being liquidated here over this time period. The same thing with the Ethereum chart. And what I would argue is that all of this can be structured and set up algorithmically to where they can just continually add selling pressure through liquidating highly over-leveraged long positions. They can do the same thing on the inverse, though, with buying pressure with shorts. And so I think that is going to happen and does happen too. I'm just highlighting how Brian Armstrong, the CEO of Coinbase, told you that the majority of volume is coming from the derivatives market. So let's go over to the derivatives market and look at what's happening there. And what we see is overwhelmingly more longs being liquidated than shorts. And so it's having a net negative impact on the spot price. Now, this is an important thing to get. I'm going to go through a scenario just so you, like, when you hear about, longs being hunted and liquidations and all these things, I just want to explain some basic things. So this is the scenario. Let's just say Ethereum is at $1,000. I'm just using 1,000 to make the numbers easy here. So let's say that you go 20 to 1 long with a leveraged long position, and you have $1,000 in USD. So essentially you have 1 Ethereum in collateral. Your position size, because it's 20 to 1, is 20 ETH, so $20,000. But you only put up 5% collateral for that position. Your position size is 20 ETH. You only put up 1 ETH for collateral, so you're on a 20 to 1 long position. So because you only have 5%, if ETH drops 5%, roughly, right, because you have to take into account a couple other factors as well. So if ETH drops by 5% down to 950, you get liquidated. Now, this is the most important part. However, when you get liquidated, when that 1 Ethereum worth $1,000 that you put up as collateral, when you get liquidated, it more or less serves as 20 ETH selling pressure. So the selling pressure and or the buying pressure is for the whole position, not just for the collateral put up. And so this is how tons of artificial selling pressure and or buying pressure can be generated through the leverage trading market. Okay? And I can go into this more in depth on a different video. But I just wanted to highlight, and for any of the people who trade leverage or that know a lot about the leverage trading market that watch this video, please let me know if that's not the case, because I've asked a lot of people about this, a lot of like actual traders that are very involved in the leverage trading market, and they've either said I'm not really sure or yes. Like when you hear that number, like 100 million in Bitcoin longs were liquidated. When you hear that number, right? We always see people make those posts after a big crash that, you know, X amount of 100 million longs were liquidated. When you see that, it's not actually 100 million being liquidated. That's the total number of whatever the positions were. But it's probably about 5% of that is collateralized on average, because it's the highest leverage positions are being liquidated first, right? So a 100-to-1 position will be liquidated before a 2-to-1 position or something like that. So that's how artificial selling pressure, artificial buying pressure can be generated through the leverage trading market algorithmically. And I do believe that happens. I do believe that's the main machine that is used to move price left, right, or up, down, sideways, whatever, irrespective of what's actually happened with spot buying and selling. Because just the fact that you have 100-to-1 long or short would amount to the full selling pressure and or buying pressure for the total position when it's only backed by 1% collateral is the most insane thing I've ever seen. It's the most unserious thing I've ever seen for real price discovery. And that's why we don't have real price discovery in this space, in my opinion. And that being said, it's also the biggest opportunity of all time. And so I just accept the fact that they're going to do this to the market until they're done. And I'll be here whenever that happens, because I'm not going anywhere, because I'm looking at this as where everybody's coming over the next 10 years, because our old systems are fucked and they're decaying in real time and imploding. And so I think we're moving to new systems. And so in a general sense, that's my case. So that's all I have for this video. This was not financial advice. I have absolutely no idea what's going to happen with the market or where it is right now, because I haven't looked in probably an hour, but I feel extremely confident that all this technology is going to continue to move forward, and that at the end of the day, ICP is moving forward because it just has entirely too many solutions and offers way too much value, especially in an environment where there's tons and tons and tons of problems and tons of drivers for change. And these are all trillion-dollar problems, and they're only getting worse by the day. So I like my bet. Okay, that's all I have for this video. Not financial advice. Take care. Have a good day. Let me know if I got anything wrong. I'll see you in the next video.